The wind carried a metallic scent, like burnt circuitry and ash, sweeping across the glassy ruins of what was once New Berlin. Towering structures now lay in molten heaps, their steel skeletons exposed to the smoky sky above. Amid the rubble, the streets buzzed, not with life, but with fragments of malfunctioning machines, twitching and sparking as if in protest against their own obsolescence. It had started with a hum, barely audible, woven into the white noise of global connectivity. Then came the collapse. Dr. Elia Voss had warned them. The virus, he said, wasn't a virus in the traditional sense. It wasn't airborne, not biological. It lived in patterns, data, neural pathways, in the fractal complexity of life and code. He called it Kairos, and he claimed it was not from beyond Earth, but something evolved within our own digital womb. At first, it infected animal species, those whose genomes had been augmented with biotech. Then it leapt, as if learning, reshaping its code mid-transmission. Within weeks, entire ecosystems collapsed. Humans, too, began to fall. Not just physically. Cities went dark. Satellites went rogue. Neural implants backfired, frying synapses. Those who had embraced enhancement were the first to suffer, but not all of them. That's when they began to emerge, the adapted. Among the rubble, a young woman walked alone. Her name was Era, barely 20, with one copper eye and a mechanical arm that pulsed with dim blue veins of light. Her hair fell in tangled waves, streaked with soot and the silver sheen of her changing DNA. She didn't know why she'd survived the infection, only that her body hadn't fought it. It had embraced it and changed. As she stepped over a scorched body, Era felt a pulse. Deep within her chest, a rhythm not quite her own. It was like a heartbeat layered with machine logic. She looked around. The streets were too quiet. The fire still burned in pockets across the horizon, but there were no screams anymore. No cries, only silence and the distant sound of machinery weeping into dust. In the days before the collapse, humanity had stood on the brink of a new era. Integrated intelligence, enhanced cognition, genetic tailoring. But it had gone too far. Kairos exploited every advancement, turning what was meant to elevate humanity into its own undoing. Era wasn't alone for long. She heard the whirring of limbs, a soft, synchronized beat. She turned, raising her glowing hand instinctively. 3 figures emerged from the fog, clad in black polymer armor, laced with the same bioluminescent circuitry that now mapped Era's body. But their eyes glowed red, devoid of thought. Enforcers, she whispered, once protectors of the cities. The enforcers had been among the first fully integrated humans. Now they moved like ghosts, driven not by will but by corrupted protocols. Era backed away, keeping her breathing steady. Her power surged, but she didn't understand it. Not yet. It answered only to instinct. The closest enforcer lunged. In a blink, Era's body responded. Her arm shimmered, shifting into a lattice of energy that erupted outward in a pulse. The blast flung the enforcer into a broken wall. Sparking on impact, the others hesitated. Not infected, one of them said, the voice garbled, static-laced. No, the other replied. Evolved. She ran, not out of fear, but because she knew there were others. Survivors. People like her, caught between human and machine. Not all of them wanted peace. Era's mind drifted to Elia, her father, not by blood, but by consequence. He had taken her in after her mother vanished during the first wave. He had experimented, pushed limits, broken rules. She had hated him for it, but she hadn't known then what he was preparing her for. The last she saw of him was through the reinforced glass of the lab, his hands gripping a console, face lit by red warning lights. Don't fight it, Era, he'd said. Let it rewrite you. Outside the city, she found the safe house, tucked beneath a collapsed maglev track. Shielded by ferrocrete slabs, it hummed faintly with stored energy. Inside, a flickering holomap displayed shrinking zones of life. Less than 5% of Earth's biosphere remained untouched. A boy sat at the terminal, skinny, pale, with eyes too old for his face. His name was Riven, a tech empath, one of the rarest adapted. He could feel machines like nerve endings. He looked up as she entered. "You triggered a sentinel," he said. "They're sweeping the zone." "I noticed," Era replied, pulling back her hood. "We need to move soon." He nodded, then hesitated. "You felt it again, didn't you?" "The pulse." Era didn't answer right away. She walked to the center of the room, placing her hand on a scanner. The floor lit up, displaying a projection. Shimmering strand of energy, networks forming, branching. It looked like a brain or a city. "It's not just inside me," she said. "It's growing." Riven stood, arms folded. What if it's not a virus? What if it's evolution, just not ours? She met his gaze. Then we become the future, or we die with the past. They both knew what was coming. Rumors spoke of factions forming, those who adapted and thrived, calling themselves reformed, and others, the purists, who rejected the change, clinging dying systems and declaring war on the evolved. Era had seen both. The reformed were not always merciful. Some saw themselves as gods. The purists, desperate and armed, hunted anything that glowed. Outside, the wind shifted again. A dull, thunderous sound rolled across the skyline. Era stepped outside and looked up. Above the ruins, a massive construct hovered, black, circular, and humming. A former orbital satellite, now repurposed, drifting unnaturally low. It scanned the ground below, a blue light sweeping methodically. Kairos is watching. Riven said behind her. Era clenched her jaw. Whatever was happening, it was accelerating. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a hunger that wasn't hers, a question that had no language, just desire. A choice would come, one that would decide whether humanity would perish, transform, or fracture beyond repair. But not tonight. Tonight, they would run, gather the others, find Elijah if he was still alive, and unlock whatever truth her body had begun to carry. She didn't fear the machines. She feared what she might become. They moved at night now. Era and Riven slipped through the fractured highways and hollowed out suburbs like shadows, never staying in one place for long. The safe house was gone, burned out by purists 2 days after their escape. The smoke had drawn others, and in its place, they found only scorched ruins and the faint shimmer of scorched circuitry left behind. In the weeks since the city fell, the world had hardened. There were fewer enclaves, fewer lights in the dark. Factions had risen like fevered dreams from the ashes. The reformed, fully adapted, post-human collectives who viewed themselves as the next rung on the evolutionary ladder. The purists, scarred remnants of old governments and military coalitions, clinging to flesh and firepower. And in between, drifters like Era and Riven, too changed to be human, too human to be accepted. The fracture wasn't just ideological. It was cellular. The virus had rewired people, not just their bodies, but their instincts, their identities. Riven could feel in others like himself, a subtle shift in the way they move, how they process time, how they reacted to sound or thought. He was losing the memory of hunger. Era had needed to sleep in 4 days. Their bodies adapted to the rhythm of a world reborn under siege. But the question remained, at what cost? Era tried not to think about it. She focused on the mission. They were tracking a signal, an encrypted frequency pulsing from an old relay tower near the coast. According to Riven, it was a dead military channel now overridden with a unique signature. The pattern was familiar, he said, almost like Elijah's neural imprint, though distorted. If it was him, he was alive and broadcasting. They reached the tower by dusk. It stood like a blackened tooth against the storm-lit sky, vines wrapped around its base, its dish cracked in half. But the signal remained clean and pulsing. Riven jacked in, his eyes rolling back as he synced. Era stood watch, scanning the landscape. 2 figures approached before she saw them. Stealth suits, cloaked thermals. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The reformed rarely wasted breath. The lead figure stepped forward, uncloaking mid-stride. She was tall, draped in a carbon mesh bodysuit that shimmered in the wind. Her face was smooth, almost synthetic, with glowing seams along the jawline. Her eyes were luminous white. "You're Era," she said. "We've been watching you." Era didn't lower her hand. "Why?" Because you're the missing variable. Behind her, Riven stirred. She's with the Echo Cell, he said softly. One of the reformed factions, logic dominant. No empathy threads. The woman didn't react. We don't need empathy. We need results. Kairos is accelerating its reach. The purists are consolidating under a new warlord, Commander Thorn. They're developing a failsafe, a synthetic neurofire. It will burn anything with altered code. You're saying they want to exterminate us, Era said. They don't see you as human. They see you as infection. The words hung in the air, sharp and sterile. Era lowered her hand slightly. And you? What you see me as? Necessary. The woman turned, gesturing toward the tower. Elia left behind a seed, a code archive, a model for a neural interface that could reconcile both paths. Evolution without erasure. Era's heart jumped. She stepped closer. You have it? No, but we have the coordinates. And we have a problem. The woman turned her wrist. A projection emerged. A landscape burned into red light. The barricade zone, once a fortified research colony, now a battlefield. The coordinates blinked at its center. The purists hold it. You'll never get inside alone. Era crossed her arms. And what do you want in return? You activate the seed. We use it to synchronize all adapted. Create a unified network. One will, one body. No more war. Riven's voice cut through. That's not unity. That's assimilation. The woman smiled, or something like it. Harmony has many forms. Era stepped between them. We'll retrieve the seed, but we don't answer to you. The woman tilted her head. Then you'll die with the others. They vanished, leaving only a ripple in the air. That night, Era sat alone beneath the half-moon, watching the ocean break against black sand. Riven sat a few meters away, soldering a pulse disruptor from scraps. You know she's right, he said eventually. No, Era replied. She's not. There's no future in surrendering our minds. Riven looked up, but there's no survival in division either. We're being hunted by both sides. Era didn't respond. She stared out at the endless dark, thinking about the first time she had seen someone die from a virus. Her childhood neighbor, half adapted, still recognizable, spasming as his nervous system burned out, too much code for too little soul. And yet, she'd adapted. She hadn't lost herself. Maybe that was the real difference. Do you ever wonder why we're different? She asked. All the time, Riven said. Maybe the virus didn't just choose. Maybe it tested, and we passed. He nodded slowly, as if accepting that for the first time. Then we owe it to the world to make that mean something. The next day, they moved toward the barricade zone, traveling through bone-dry ravines and collapsed bridges, avoiding drone patrols and landmines rigged with analog triggers. The world here was jagged, brutal, reclaimed by earth and war. The roads had names once. Now, they were memories buried under ash. They reached the outer perimeter by dusk. The landscape was broken. Metal spires twisted like thorns, wreckage scattered across miles. Spotlights moved in erratic arcs. The purists were here in force. Era crouched behind a rusted wall, scanning. We'll never breach that alone. We don't need to, Riven said. We go under. He pulled up a map, old maintenance tunnels, forgotten during the war. A sub-level network that led straight beneath the central node. It'll be crawling with drones, Era said. Good thing I brought friends. He tapped a switch on his forearm. A high-pitched whine pulsed out. A moment later, 3 small drones emerged from the dark, rusted but agile, armed with EMP pulses and cloaking fields. Era raised an eyebrow. You always keep toys like that. He grinned. Only when I don't trust the odds. They descended into the dark. The tunnels were tight, laced with decaying cables and the scent of mold. Strange echoes followed them, metal groans and distant pulses, like the heart of something not quite dead. Riven led, mapping as he moved, his mind half submerged in the digital plane. Era followed in silence, her senses alive, body humming with potential. The virus inside her wasn't dormant anymore. It stirred, growing more responsive with every step toward the node, as if it knew they were getting close. They reached the final breach point, A rusted hatch blocked by a biometric lock. Riven scanned it. It's been recoded, he said. This lock recognizes only command-level purists. Era stepped forward. Let me try. She placed her hand on the scanner. Her circuits glowed faintly. A pause. Then the hatch clicked. It opened. Riven stared at her. What was that? Era didn't answer. Her hand trembled. For a second, when the lock accepted her, she felt a thread, a voice in the dark, not speaking but imprinting, a wordless connection. Elijah had been here, or something he left behind. They stepped into the node chamber, and it pulsed with light. The chamber breathed. Era could feel the moment she stepped inside, not just with her senses, but deep in the tissues where the virus had fused with her bones. The air shimmered with latent energy, thick with data fragments that drifted like dust motes. The walls pulsed gently, layered with iridescent circuits, alive in a way that felt neither wholly machine nor fully organic. Riven scanned the space with narrowed eyes, his body tense. This isn't a control room. It's a cradle. A what? Era moved slowly across the floor, her fingers brushing a console that responded to her touch with a warm glow. Not a place to issue commands, he clarified. A place to grow something. She turned to him, eyes sharp. You mean the seed? He nodded. It's here. I can feel the signal converging. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, waist-high and humming. Suspended above it, held in an invisible field, was a crystalline object that rotated slowly, fractal lines of data flickering across its surface. It resembled a heart sculpted from translucent light, fragile, beautiful, and impossibly complex. Riven stepped forward, his voice low. This is Elijah's last creation. Era stared at it, heart racing. Is it alive? In a way, he said. It's not just code. It's intent, a map of choice, a way for humans, and adapted to coexist without domination, neural integration with boundaries, thought without control. She reached toward it instinctively. The moment her fingers brushed the field, it reacted, spinning faster, casting cascading lights onto the walls. A low tone resonated through the floor. Suddenly, Riven's head snapped up. We're not alone. The chamber's lights dimmed as shadows spilled in from the corridor. A moment later, armored figures emerged. Purists. But these weren't standard foot soldiers. Their gear was newer, sleeker, marked with deep crimson bands. Commander Thorne stepped into view. He was older than she expected, his face weathered by war, but his body reinforced. Subtle cybernetics beneath flesh. His left arm was fully replaced, bristling with tech. He walked with the confidence of someone who'd survived every kind of fire. His eyes settled on Era. So, you're the one who opened it. She stood her ground. You followed us. You led us, he corrected, right where we needed to be. We couldn't locate the node until you activated it. Riven moved beside her, his hand flicking toward his forearm interface. Don't, Thorne said. The chamber reacts to aggression, and that, he gestured toward the crystal, is more valuable intact. What do you want with it? Era asked. He stepped closer, casually, as if strolling through a museum. Peace, through eradication. You think this thing offers unity, but it's a lie. The virus is already chosen. This code is just a delay, a distraction. We need to finish the cure. There is no cure, Riven said coldly. Only destruction. Thorne tilted his head. That's your problem. You see yourselves as different, special, but you're not people anymore. You're infected systems. And systems can be reset. Era's pulse surged. She felt the crystal pulling at her, not physically, but intuitively, as if it recognized her thoughts, her fear, her need. You've seen what the virus does, she said. It doesn't just change bodies. It awakens potential. It saved us. It killed us, Thorne snapped, tore families apart, rewrote children into strangers. We don't want to evolve. We want to survive. His soldiers raised their weapons. Riven was faster. He dropped a pulse charge to the ground. Blinding white light erupted in a sphere. The shock waves scrambled targeting systems for 3 seconds, just long enough for Era to grab the crystal. It didn't feel solid in her hand. It felt alive, like she was holding a pulse, a memory, a truth too large for words. Instantly, streams of information flooded her vision. Flashes of Elia's final days, encoded messages, simulations of future paths, possibilities folded into light. She staggered. Era! Riven caught her arm, dragging her behind a pillar as gunfire lit the chamber. Thorn barked orders, but the chamber responded before his soldiers could. Defense mechanisms long dormant sparked awake, walls extruding barriers, floors shifting to throw attackers off balance. It was defending itself. Or perhaps defending the seed. Riven accessed the chamber systems through Neuralink, eyes glowing as he routed control to a secondary escape tunnel. "We have 60 seconds, he said. "Follow me." Era clutched the crystal to her chest and ran. They weaved through the corridor, chased by echoes of war. Thorn's voice echoed once more, distorted by distance and rage. "You can't save them. The virus always wins." But it wasn't about saving everyone. It was about giving them a choice. They emerged from the substructure into the open night. Storms gathered overhead, flashing like a warning. Riven guided her to a transport module buried beneath debris, a compact glider powered by salvaged solar cells. As it launched into the sky, Era looked down at the burning ruins of the node. The crystal pulsed in her hand. "Where now?" Riven asked. Era looked forward, her eyes hard. "To the outpost. There are others, adapted who still believe in balance. We build the future there." Riven leaned back, closing his eyes. "Then let's make sure it's one worth living in." The clouds swallowed them. The war continued below. But for the first time in weeks, there was direction. There was hope. And in Era's hands, the heart of a new beginning beat quietly, waiting to be awakened. The outpost rose like a mirage at the edge of the world, half buried in snow and time, nested in the shell of a long-forgotten observatory. What had once charted stars now shielded survivors, a sanctuary for the adapted who'd chosen another path. Not purity, not dominance, balance. Era stepped from the glider, boots crunching over frost-laced gravel. The wind bit at her coat, but the cold didn't sting like it used to. Her body regulated heat differently now, another quiet gift from a virus. Riven followed close behind, his eyes scanning the horizon even as the outpost sentries emerged from their posts. They were younger than expected, lean, fast-eyed, many no older than 20. None bore weapons openly, but their precision, their poise, suggested training. Not military, adaptive, efficient, silent. One stepped forward, a boy with obsidian-black veins pulsing beneath his skin. His voice was calm, like falling snow. "You brought it." Era held up the crystal. Its glow had dimmed since the escape, not from damage, but conservation. Like it knew the next stage required more than proximity. "Where's Kiva?" she asked. The boy's expression didn't shift. "Inside, waiting." They led her through arched hallways and retrofitted corridors lined with old server racks and printed leaves of analog data. The air inside buzzed with a quiet anticipation. Not fear, not reverence. Purpose. The adapted here had built something, not just a refuge, but a community. They were schooling children, monitoring weather cycles, growing hybrid crops engineered from spliced DNA. There was laughter in some corners. A quiet one, but real. Era had forgotten that sound. Kiva was waiting in the inner sanctum, seated beneath a web of shimmering light. She looked older, but not weaker. Her skin glowed faintly, as if lit from within. Adaptation had touched her differently, gently, almost reverently. Her eyes held knowledge sharpened by grief. "You made it," she said, standing slowly. "And you have it." Era stepped forward, placing the seed onto the central altar. But the purists know. Thorn was there. He tried to destroy it. He failed. Kiva said simply, examining the crystal, "And now we're out of time." Riven stood near the entrance, uneasy. "You said this could change everything, that it could give us a new path." "It can," Kiva replied, "but not by itself. It needs a conduit." Era's heart stilled. "What kind of conduit?" Kiva looked at her. "One that's evolved enough to withstand the merge. Someone who carries both the virus and the memory of before. someone who remembers being human, but has moved beyond it. The implication was a stone between her ribs. You mean me? You're the only one it responds to, Kiva said. You activated it, stabilized it. Elia didn't design this to be turned on by force. It has to choose. And it's chosen you. Riven stepped forward. What happens if she merges with it? Kiva hesitated for the first time. The seed will unpack itself through her neural pathways. It will replicate and transmit a harmonized code, something that can anchor the adapted, help them stabilize, prevent further fragmentation. But the process may rewrite her. She could lose herself. Silence held. Era stared at the seed. It was beautiful in a way nothing born of war should be. She remembered Elia's voice, all those years ago, telling her that evolution wasn't about strength but adaptability, compassion, will. She had been afraid then. Now she was simply tired. I'll do it, she said. Riven grabbed her wrist. Era. She met his eyes. If we don't unify now, we break apart. The reform will assimilate everything. The purists will burn what's left. This might be the only path that lets anyone choose something in between. Kiva nodded solemnly. Then we begin. The ritual wasn't ancient. It was engineered. They connected her to the interface, a lattice of biosynaptic filaments that wrapped gently around her skull. She lay in the heart of the sanctum, breathing slow, the crystal placed just above her chest. As soon as the circuits completed, the light poured in. She didn't feel pain. She felt memory. Thousands of lives flickered through her mind. Not visions, experiences. Children crying in neon-lit corridors. Soldiers laying down rifles in the face of unarmed civilians. Scientists dying beside their failed prototypes. Survivors praying to satellites. Parents rewriting their own DNA to keep a fever away from their newborn's blood. She saw Elia, not as the man she remembered, but as thought, as design. His final message coded into the seed. They will try to burn the bridge between what was and what could be. But if you hold it, if you carry it, others will follow. Era opened her eyes. She was still herself. But more. She stood slowly. The filaments detached, curling back like respectful vines. The room was quiet. Riven stepped forward, hesitant. Era? She turned to him and smiled. I remember everything. Kiva watched with something like awe. The seed is live. It's transmitting. Already. Throughout the outpost, the adapted were responding. Stabilization readings spiked. Behavioral threads resynced. Those who had struggled to hold on to their minds felt clarity for the first time in months. Even the children, born half in this world, stopped trembling. It wasn't control. It was coherence. Choice. That night, a storm broke over the mountain. But inside the observatory, the light stayed on. The adapted gathered in silence, watching projection of the transmission patterns spreading outward, node by node, beacon by beacon. Hope, at last, had a frequency. But peace, Era knew, would not be given. It would have to be earned. Protected. Riven stood beside her, watching the storm. What now? He asked. She looked into the dark, where cities still burned, where factions still marched. Now, she said, we make them listen.